All right, welcome to the All-Remote Snapshot, where we give you a glimpse into GitLab's 100% remote culture and a behind-the-scenes look at some of the amazing people that work here. So let's dive right in. My guest today, who are you? How long have you been with GitLab, and what do you do at GitLab?
Kia ora from New Zealand. So my name is Charlie, and I live on in the top half of the South Island of New Zealand in a place called Motueka. And I've been at GitLab for 6 months since March, and I am a Senior Backend Engineer with the Plan team.
So what attracted you to GitLab? I want to know a little bit about where you came from. Why did you come here of all the companies you could have worked at?
Yeah, so I come from decades of contracting. So for me, being remote, I've been remote for a very long time, and I've been a contractor for a very long time. And one of the things that I look at when I look for a company is what I want to work for the company. So it's an interview of them as well as an interview of me. It's more, do our skills fit together, and do we fit together, and can we work well together? That's the question that we ask when we do an interview. And sometimes it's one way or the other, depending on what the market is like. For me, GitLab had ticked all the boxes, many of the boxes, because I looked at the company culture and the flexibility, and the all remote was a huge draw card for me because I live in a rural valley. I don't have any offices close to here. I think the closest city is 40 minutes away, and even then I wouldn't want to commute. So for me, it had to be remote. And when I chatted to people in GitLab, it turned out that the handbook was not an aspirational document, it was descriptive. So instead of just describing how they would like to do things, it was describing how it actually did things, which of course is wonderful. And so that to me was a huge draw card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that I've experienced since being here is just how real and authentic the values are, and that the handbook is a living, evolving document that people make changes to and iterations to and build on it every single day. And it's huge. And similar to you, I live in a very rural place. The last census, we had a population of 300. So it enables me to live where I want to live and still contribute in a meaningful way. So in talking about the all-remote culture, what are the notable elements of that have allowed you to structure your day in life? Obviously, where you live, it's highly unique. You couldn't do that without the remote nature. Is there anything else that it contributes to?
Yeah, so I live on a small block. I would say small block. It's about half a hectare, which is just over 1.2 acres, I believe. And we have 94 fruit trees, and we homeschool one of our children. So for us, the flexibility of remote work, because it's not just flexibility of location. While some companies do say, you should be here between, online between 9 and 5, for example, or 9 to 5 in some time zone. I have worked for between 9 to 5 doing pairing for 8 hours a day in the San Francisco time zone, which involved me getting up at 3 in the morning. So that is sometimes where you have location flexibility, but not time flexibility. And that's okay. That was just the way that contract was, and I loved it. There was another, so for me, the GitLab, the way of having that time flexibility allows me to say, drop kids off at school in the morning, or that one kid who we take to school, and then do the lessons for the other one. And my partner and I tag team on that. So we do have a really good system whereby we can do the work that we required with the homeschooling, with maintaining our fruit trees and our property, and then also working at the times that suit us. So for example, I work very well at night, which happens to be when Europe is waking up. So I can collaborate with some people then. So to me, the big thing is the flexibility around not just time and location, but also the trust that comes with that. Because I think that in order to have flexibility, you have to have that trust. You have to let go and let people do things as they choose to, and that involves a big amount of trust. So the trust that we're given to solve problems how we would professionally do it, and so there's no micromanagement or anything like that. And for me, it's perfect.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked, how do you make remote work on a grand scale across 50 plus countries and handling all these time zones? And what has rang true to me is something you said at the end on trust and empowerment. If those elements aren't there, it's interesting because if those elements aren't there, it doesn't really work well in a co-located space either. So it's not
Mhm.
all that radical that it needs to work well in an all remote setting. It just needs to work well in any setting. It's just
Yes.
much easier to extrapolate that and see the power of it when you have people distributed all over the world. Much like
Yeah.
you, I prefer to work a little later in the day and shift my day that way. You walked us through a day in the life to some degree, but is there any cool anecdotes or examples for the power of structuring your day that you do things a little differently than you would be able to otherwise?
Yeah. I guess for me, the big flexibility is being able to put my family do things around what our family does, and then and our fruit trees. Fruit trees, I guess, are part of our family, I guess, in a kind of way. I mean, mostly we just like to keep them alive. Yeah, so we end up because it's springtime right now. One of our favorite things to do is when we're up having a leg stretch break, which of course is really important to do anyway. And I get my gumboots on and we walk around the property. And so we do a circuit and we check all the buds, we check for fungal activity, we check for things that need pruning, we check for rootstock growing where it shouldn't be, that sort of thing. So it gives us a way to be really present on our property, but also do the things that we need to do anyway, which is to stretch your legs and get out of the sort of the weeds of whatever problem you're working on, and maybe have a bit of a cognitive break from that. So it works exceptionally well, and it also means we can be present where we need to be present.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were giving someone advice that were considering working for GitLab or any other all remote or remote first company, what bits of advice would you give them? And have you run into any challenges that you're still working on solutions? Like it's not necessarily all rosy. What are the things they need to be aware of and weigh those pros and cons?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So for me, having worked remote a long time, the remote aspect was very easy to slip into. But I know that for some people, the remote aspect of it is quite challenging. To me, in order to work remotely, you have to have impeccable communication, and that could be that you yourself is a really good communicator. But I mean, to me, the processes around how you communicate and how you facilitate communication as a company are exceptionally important, because it means that you already have channels in which you can communicate on the things that really matter, and that your work, everything can be written down properly or noted properly, and that the timing of it can be tweaked so that it works for everyone involved. And you don't even actually have to be in the same office in order to have those things. You can start doing them in an office, and it sort of hinges on you being all co-located. But I feel like as you go remote, you start writing more things down. You start to note things asynchronously, because you don't know when the other person's, say, going to wake up, or if they're even around, because you can't see them. You can maybe put something into a chat program, or you can put things into our issues, for example. Um, so there's impeccable communication is the, I think, the backbone, the trust and communication of any relationship, really. But when it comes to working environment, it makes it much easier to do what you need to do. You know exactly what you're doing, and that you see the roadmap of where you are going. So it means that whatever effort you're putting in can better further the business goals, as well as keeping you more happy because you're doing things the way you need to structure in terms of your day. In terms of some challenges, I think for me, I've always worked in kind of startups and smaller places, so I've always been the senior developer. So if something went wrong, they had to call me, and I've always sort of had that leadership position. And here, it's the code base is so large, and the company is so large that being able to say it's okay for me to not know this, and it's okay for me to ask somebody else and not feel bad about it has been a big one. Um, and the problems, of course, are enterprise problems, so they're not, we're dealing with a large number of users, so and a large product. So making sure that we communicate even more tightly with all different parts of the company, and making sure that everyone's communicating well with each other across departments, I guess you could call them. So that's to me is, it's okay to not know everything, because in this kind of setting, it's impossible for one person to know everything. So you have to rely on your coworkers to be able to tell you, and it's okay to not know these things.
Love it. It's amazing. Thank you so much for your insights. If you, the viewer, want to learn more about GitLab's all remote culture, be sure to check out the link in the description below. We'll see you next time.